Have you noticed how waiting always feels endless? We wait for the money to come, for the right person to appear, for life to finally get better. And yet, the longer we wait, the further away it all seems. What if I told you the waiting itself is the very thing keeping it out of reach? Neville Goddard dropped a truth so radical, most people overlook it. Creation is finished. What you desire already exists, in spirit, in imagination, in the unseen. You're not waiting for it to be made. You're only waiting to assume it. And the longer you postpone, the more you affirm lack. Here's the paradox: the moment you stop waiting, everything begins to shift. Because the law of assumption doesn't respond to your wishes, it responds to your state. And your state changes the second you dare to live in the end. This video will show you exactly why waiting is the biggest trap and how you can break it today. You'll discover the method Neville used to collapse someday into now, and why the secret isn't effort, but feeling. If you've ever wondered why your manifestation feels stuck, this might be the key that unlocks it. So let's go deeper into Neville's teaching and uncover why what you've been longing for has always been yours in spirit. Waiting always feels harmless at first. Someone says, "I'll get there eventually," thinking they're being patient. But in reality, waiting is a subtle declaration of lack. It's like standing at a train station, convinced the train hasn't arrived yet, while it's been sitting silently on the platform the whole time. That posture of waiting whispers, "It's not here yet." And life, echoing back, agrees. Think of how often people speak about money. They'll say, "I'm waiting for things to get better." Without realizing it, they just affirmed, "I don't have it now." The law of assumption doesn't respond to words. It responds to the state behind the words. And the state of waiting vibrates absence. That's why Neville Goddard insisted, stop waiting manifestation, because waiting only builds more distance. It's no different from planting a seed and refusing to water it, telling yourself you'll wait for the rain. The soil doesn't respond to hope. It responds to nourishment. And consciousness works the same way. It doesn't bloom from your longing, but from your assumption. Waiting waters doubt. Assuming waters certainty. Each produces its own harvest, and the results never lie. How many times have you heard someone say, "When the right time comes, it will all work out"? It sounds wise, but it's a dangerous trap. That right time never arrives because it's always pushed into the future. Waiting creates a mirage, like water in the desert that disappears as you walk closer. Someday is the place where dreams go to die. Here's the cruel part. While someone waits, life brings them more evidence that they must continue waiting. Bills pile up, opportunities slip away, people disappoint them, and they sigh. See? It's just not time yet. But that's not destiny. It's the law at work. The state of waiting is a magnet for delay, and the mirror of reality can only reflect what you've assumed. I once had a friend who always said, "I'll be happy when I finally own my house." 10 years later, he was still renting, still waiting. Not because the house wasn't possible, but because his inner state kept repeating, "Not yet." He rehearsed his life like an actor preparing for a play that never premieres. That's the curse of the waiting room. It feels temporary, but it can last a lifetime. Many confuse patience with waiting, but they're opposites. Patience is calm expectancy. Waiting is restless lack. Neville's teaching was simple. Creation is finished. Patience rests in that truth and trusts its unfolding. Waiting doubts it and suffers through the delay. Which do you think aligns with the wish-fulfilled state practice? The one that breathes, "It's already mine." If you've ever waited for a phone call, you know how strange it feels. The more you stare at the screen, the longer it stays silent. But the moment you put it down and move on, it suddenly rings. Why? Because you shifted states. Waiting locks you in absence. Living as if it's done opens the door for life to surprise you. The danger is that waiting doesn't just postpone. It conditions the mind to normalize absence. It's like rehearsing every day for a concert that never takes place. You memorize the songs, you practice the moves, but the stage lights never come on. And so your dream becomes something you prepare for instead of something you live. So if waiting is just a cycle of absence, what's the way out? Neville gave the radical answer. Creation is finished. What you desire isn't far, it's already here in spirit. The illusion collapses the moment you stop waiting and start assuming. And this takes us straight into his core teaching, where we see why nothing is truly missing. Neville Goddard's entire body of work rests on one bold claim: creation is finished. That means every possibility, every version of you, every outcome you've ever dreamed of is already alive in consciousness. Nothing needs to be built, nothing needs to be earned. it's already complete. What the world calls future is simply a state you haven't assumed yet. Think about a massive library filled with every book ever written and every book that ever could be written. You don't need to write the story, it's already on the shelf. All you have to do is pick the one you want to read. That's what Neville meant when he said your desire already exists in spirit. You're not waiting for it to be created, you're choosing to step into it. This is why the law of assumption works so powerfully. When you assume the wish fulfilled, you aren't forcing the universe to rearrange itself from scratch. You're aligning yourself with the version of reality where it's already true. It's like tuning a radio. You don't build the station, you just select the frequency. Creation is finished, your job is tuning in. People often resist this idea. They'll say, "But I don't see it yet, so how can it be finished?" That's like a child saying a song doesn't exist because they can't hear it until the radio is on. The signal is there, whether or not the receiver is tuned. Your imagination is the dial, and assumption is how you lock onto the channel of your desire. Neville's radical point was that nothing is actually missing. The love you want, the wealth you dream of, the health you crave, it's all here in spirit. The only barrier is your refusal to claim it now. That's why he asked, "How to claim it now, Neville?" Because the moment you assume, the spiritual reality becomes your inner truth, and the outer mirror must eventually follow. Imagine walking into a tailor's shop. Every outfit you could ever want is already made and waiting. Some hang in the back, some up front, but none of them require sewing. They only require selection. That's how states work. The moment you try one on, it feels real. And once you wear it long enough, others see you in it too. Creation being finished also removes the pressure of making it happen. Many people exhaust themselves trying to force results. They treat manifestation like construction, brick by brick, day by day. But Neville freed us from that struggle. You're not building the house, you're stepping into a house that's already complete. That shift alone changes everything. If creation is finished, then delay is just an illusion. The waiting room exists only in your mind. What takes time is your willingness to let go of the old state and assume the new. That's why the teachings always circle back to inner work. Imagination creates reality. The outer world doesn't create, it only reveals. Once this truth sinks in, life feels lighter. You realize you're not begging, not chasing, not bargaining. You're simply remembering who you already are in another dimension of self. That remembrance is powerful. It carries a calm authority, like a king returning to his throne. And it's from that throne that the law of assumption begins to work effortlessly. So the next time your mind whispers, "It's not here yet," remind yourself, creation is finished. What you long for already exists. All that's left is your assumption of it. And the moment you step into that state, you'll see why Neville always said, waiting affirms absence, but assuming affirms life. Which brings us to the real difference between waiting and embodying. When someone says they're waiting for their dream, they're unknowingly affirming distance. Waiting implies a gap between where you are and where you want to be. That gap is the very illusion that keeps the desire locked away. Neville Goddard often reminded us, every time you wait, you're quietly saying, "It's not mine yet." And the law of assumption faithfully mirrors that belief back to you. Assumption, on the other hand, has no gap. It says, "This is who I am now." There's no separation, no future moment required. To assume is to embody the wish fulfilled, to wear it as naturally as you wear your own skin. It doesn't feel like chasing, it feels like being. That shift transforms your energy, your choices, and even the way people respond to you. Think of it this way. Waiting is standing at the restaurant door, hoping your table is ready. Assuming is sitting down at the table, ordering and enjoying the meal. One keeps you outside, the other places you inside. The law of assumption doesn't reward the one knocking, it recognizes the one who has already entered. Creation is finished, but you must step into it. This is why so many people feel stuck. They keep affirming separation, telling themselves, "When it comes, then I'll feel secure." But that "when" never arrives, because the feeling of separation repeats itself endlessly. The only way out of the loop is to collapse the distance and declare, "I'm already the one who has it." That's the essence of Neville's teaching. I remember meeting someone who always said, "One day, I'll be confident," but you could see in his posture, his words, his tone, that day never came. Why? Because he was always waiting for confidence to arrive instead of assuming it now. The truth is, confidence doesn't appear first. Assumption appears first. Confidence follows. When you assume, you're not pretending. Pretending still acknowledges separation. like a child wearing a costume but knowing it's fake. Assumption is different. It's the inner conviction that this is already me, and once the conviction settles, the outer world reorganizes itself to match that inner identity. That's why Neville said imagination creates reality. It doesn't fake it, it births it. Waiting also fuels anxiety. It makes you check, compare, and measure constantly. But assumption brings peace. It feels ordinary, natural, almost boring in its calmness. That's how you know you've shifted. When the desire no longer feels distant or dramatic, it feels like brushing your teeth, automatic every day, unquestioned. The irony is that many avoid assumption because it feels too easy. They're so conditioned to struggle that they don't trust simplicity. But the law of assumption works through states, not struggle. Waiting makes things complicated. Assuming makes things inevitable. Which one feels more aligned with the life you want? Every time you wait, you strengthen the wall of separation. Every time you assume, you dissolve it. Waiting says, I hope. Assumption says, I am. And reality always bends to I am. That's why Neville emphasized the wish-fulfilled state practice. It's the doorway from longing into living. So the real question is, are you reinforcing distance or dissolving it? To wait is to push life away. To assume is to welcome it as present fact. And once you understand that, the next mistake becomes obvious. The trap of postponement, where someday becomes the biggest lie we tell ourselves. Someday sounds harmless. It even feels hopeful at first. People say, someday I'll be free from debt. Someday I'll have the relationship I want. Someday I'll start living my dream. But that word is a thief in disguise. It postpones life indefinitely. The moment you say someday, you've just told your subconscious, not today. And the law of assumption will keep repeating that script. Neville Goddard warned about this subtle trap. When you push your desire into the future, you've placed it out of reach. You've locked it in a box labeled not now. And the outer world mirrors that box perfectly. That's why so many people feel stuck in cycles of waiting. They keep affirming separation through postponement. Creation is finished, but they keep telling themselves it isn't theirs yet. Think of a student who says, someday I'll start writing my book. Years pass, notebooks pile up, but the book never begins. Why? Because the state of postponement was assumed more powerfully than the state of completion. The imagination was busy rehearsing excuses instead of rehearsing the end. That's the cost of someday. A life rehearsed, but never lived. I once spoke with someone who dreamed of starting a business. Every year she'd say, next year will be the year. But when next year arrived, it became after I save more money or once I take that course. Decades went by, and the business remained only in her mind. She never realized that she was assuming postponement more than she was assuming success. Someday creates a moving finish line. Just when you think you're close, it slides further away, and you keep running, believing effort alone will get you there. But the finish line was never meant to be chased. It was meant to be assumed as already crossed. The wish-fulfilled state practice ends the race instantly because you stop chasing and start being. Postponement is seductive because it lets you feel safe. It says, I don't have to change right now, I'll change later. But later is an illusion. Later is just another form of waiting. Neville's wisdom here is sharp. Assume it now, Neville would say, because later doesn't exist. There is only the state you are embodying in this very moment. Creation being finished means there's nothing to wait for. The only delay is the one you create with your thoughts. Every someday you speak becomes another day of separation. It's like pressing pause on your own life over and over again. The tape never plays because you never hit play. You just keep pressing pause with not yet. You've probably felt this around fitness goals. Someone says, I'll start working out next Monday. Monday comes and they push it to the next Monday. The cycle repeats until years vanish. Why? Because the assumption was, I'll start later, not, I am someone who moves my body now. Waiting affirms lack. Assuming affirms identity. The secret to breaking postponement isn't discipline, it's identity. When you assume the state of already being the one who has, action flows naturally. You don't have to force it. You don't keep saying someday. You live it today. That's why Neville emphasized living in the end. You end the waiting game by stepping into the end right now. And once you see how dangerous postponement is, the solution becomes beautifully simple. Stop pushing your desire into a future that never comes. Embody it now, feel it now. Let someday die, and watch today transform. Which leads us naturally into the most practical question. How do we actually assume the end in a way that feels real? Neville gave a clear method. Neville Goddard never overcomplicated the method. He taught that you don't need a 10-step plan or hours of meditation. All you need is a simple scene, a snapshot in imagination that implies your desire is already fulfilled. The shorter and more natural, the better. A handshake, a hug, a few words of congratulations, these are more powerful than elaborate fantasies. Think about it. If someone wants financial freedom, they don't need to imagine counting piles of cash for hours. Instead, they could picture a close friend smiling and saying, "I'm so proud of you, things have really turned around." That single scene carries the feeling of the wish fulfilled. It implies the end without strain. That's how to claim it now, Neville style. The trick isn't in the details, it's in the feeling. You might imagine holding keys to your new home, or sipping coffee at the table you've always dreamed of. But what makes the scene magnetic is the emotion it carries. Relief, joy, gratitude. That's what the law of assumption responds to. Not the length of the scene, but the depth of the feeling. I once heard Neville describe someone who imagined simply climbing into bed at night, but in the bed of their new home. That tiny detail shifted everything, because in imagination the act was ordinary. It wasn't grand or dramatic, and yet it carried the state of, "I live here now." That's the secret. The simpler the scene, the more natural it feels. This is also why people get stuck when they try too hard. They overbuild the movie in their minds, adding unnecessary steps, and end up exhausted. But creation is finished. You're not building anything new. You're stepping into something that already exists. A simple scene lets you bypass effort and embody it instantly. Imagine someone who wants love. They don't need to imagine the wedding, the honeymoon, and the 50-year anniversary. They could just picture holding hands while walking down the street, feeling the warmth of companionship. That tiny act implies everything else. The wish-fulfilled state practice is always about essence, not excess. And here's where most people miss it. They think imagining is enough without feeling, but Neville's method was always feeling is the secret explained. Without emotion, the scene is hollow. With emotion, even a 2-second image can rewrite your entire state. Feeling bridges imagination and reality. It's the spark that brings the picture alive. Try it tonight. Before sleep, pick a small scene that implies completion. Don't watch yourself in third person. Step into it. Feel the air, the texture, the sound. Let it be as ordinary as brushing your teeth. When it feels natural, you'll know you've touched the state. That's when assumption takes root. The beauty is you don't need to force it every hour. Even a few genuine moments of immersion can outweigh days of restless waiting, because the state lingers, reshaping how you think, act, and carry yourself. The outer world has no choice but to catch up. That's the power of imagination creates reality. So if you've been postponing, this is the doorway. Stop waiting manifestation, stop overcomplicating, and start imagining simple scenes with real feeling. That's the method Neville left us with. And once you grasp that feeling is the bridge, you'll see why emotion, not effort, becomes the key to manifestation. Neville Goddard repeated it endlessly. Feeling is the secret explained. Why? Because imagination without feeling is just daydreaming. But when you infuse a scene with emotion, relief, joy, gratitude, it becomes alive. Feeling is the bridge that carries your assumption from the invisible to the visible, from spirit to form. Without it, the bridge never gets built. Think about the difference between casually saying "I'm rich" and actually feeling the relief of bills being paid, the freedom of choice, the joy of generosity. One is hollow, the other vibrates reality. The law of assumption doesn't move by words, it moves by states, and states are born in feeling. That's why Neville insisted, "Assume it now, Neville," by entering the emotional experience. It's easy to miss how powerful a few seconds of genuine emotion can be. People think they need to force hours of affirmations or meditate for weeks. But Neville taught that one moment of real inner gratitude does more than days of waiting in lack. A single flash of deep conviction reshapes the subconscious in ways effort never could. Consider someone who finally exhales after years of struggle. That breath of relief, felt in imagination, is worth more than all the wishing in the world. Because in that instant they know, not hope, not ask, but know that their desire is already theirs. That knowing is the vibration reality mirrors. That knowing is what turns imagination into fact. I once practiced this with something small, finding parking in a crowded city. Instead of stressing, I simply imagined the feeling of sliding into an open spot with ease. Within minutes, a space appeared. Was it magic? No, it was law. The state of relief attracted its reflection. Feeling aligned my world with my assumption. Feeling also bypasses the conscious mind's resistance. You can argue with words, but you can't argue with experience. If you feel the joy of being congratulated, your subconscious accepts it as fact. That's why Neville placed so much emphasis on emotion. It's the language the subconscious understands best, and it always takes it literally. Notice too how quickly feeling shifts your body. Gratitude softens your shoulders, relief deepens your breath, joy lifts your posture. Those changes ripple outward, altering how people respond to you, how opportunities show up, how synchronicities align. Feeling is not just internal, it reshapes the external. Imagination creates reality, but feeling makes imagination real. The trap is trying to fake feeling. Pretending doesn't work, but you can recall feelings. Remember a moment of deep gratitude, even from the past, and pour that emotion into your scene. Memory is a reservoir of states. Use it to charge your imagination until the new state feels as real as the old. Even the smallest bursts matter. A 2-second wave of relief before sleep can plant a seed more powerful than an hour of restless hoping. Feeling doesn't measure time, it measures depth, and the subconscious accepts intensity over duration every time. That's why Neville's method feels effortless once you catch the rhythm of emotion. So instead of waiting, instead of rehearsing lack, focus on this. Feeling is the bridge. Gratitude, joy, relief, these are the keys that unlock the wish fulfilled. Let them saturate your imagination, and once you do, you'll notice something remarkable. Even when the outside world lags, the inner conviction remains calm. One of Neville Goddard's most important reminders was that the outer world is just a mirror. Mirrors don't move first, they only reflect what stands before them. So when you've assumed the wish fulfilled and nothing seems to shift outside, don't panic. That's simply the lag of reflection. The law of assumption is never broken. The mirror always catches up. Most people make the mistake of judging too soon. They assume the state one night, but the next morning, the old circumstances are still there, so they give up. But that's like planting a seed at night and digging it up the next morning to check if it's growing. The growth happens in silence. Your job is to persist, not to panic. Think about fitness. You don't go to the gym once and expect a new body the next day, but you persist because you trust the process. The inner work is no different. When you live in the end, when you claim it now Neville style, the reflection takes time to align, but it always aligns, because creation is finished. Neville often said, don't consider the conditions of the outer world. That means don't let appearances dictate your state. If you persist in your inner conviction, the outer must bow. The feeling of relief and gratitude is stronger than any delay. Delay is just the old state echoing one last time before it fades away. I once imagined a job offer that felt impossible. Weeks went by, nothing happened. But instead of panicking, I kept living in the end, imagining the handshake, the email, the feeling of starting fresh. Out of nowhere, the offer appeared. Looking back, the lag wasn't a failure. It was proof that persistence, not panic, bridges the gap. This is where most people stumble. They confuse the lag with denial. They think, it didn't work. But the truth is, the law always works. The mirror doesn't choose whether or not to reflect. It just reflects what you're showing it. If you keep showing it lack, it reflects lack. If you keep showing it fulfillment, it eventually reflects fulfillment. Persistence isn't about effort, it's about consistency of state. It's about walking calmly, knowing it's already done, even when nothing outside agrees yet. That calm expectancy is what Neville meant when he said to live in the end. You stop checking for signs because the inner conviction is enough. That's the secret to power. Notice too how persistence feels different from waiting. Waiting is restless and empty. Persistence is calm and full. Waiting doubts. Persistence trusts. That's why stop waiting. Manifestation is such an urgent reminder, because waiting perpetuates absence, while persistence affirms completion. The difference is everything. And here's the paradox. The less you look for results, the faster they arrive, because looking is another way of saying, it's not here yet. But when you embody the end and stop searching, the world mirrors it back with ease. The mirror always moves in its own timing, but it never fails. So when the outside world drags its feet, let it. Don't chase the mirror. Stand firm in your assumption. Because once you do, you'll start noticing subtle signs, synchronicities, and an inner calm that tells you the shift is real, and that calm expectancy opens the door to something even deeper. Neville Goddard often said the proof of assumption isn't in the outer world, it's in your inner state. You'll know you've shifted when the desire no longer feels like a distant mountain, but like an ordinary part of your life. It's no longer a craving, it's a calm knowing. That's the essence of the wish-fulfilled state practice, ordinary certainty. Think about when you order food at a restaurant. You don't obsess about whether the meal is being cooked. You relax, talk with friends, maybe sip your drink. Why? Because you expect it to arrive. That's how living in the end feels. You carry calm expectancy. You don't panic, you don't chase, you don't check the kitchen, you just know. And then the synchronicities start. Little nudges, small coincidences, things just happening. You think of someone and they call. You imagine money, and a surprise refund appears. These moments aren't the creation, they're reflections that you've already shifted inside. They're the universe winking, showing you the mirror is catching up. The beauty is that the extraordinary starts to feel ordinary. The love you wanted feels natural. The financial freedom feels normal. That ordinariness is actually the greatest sign, because when the new state feels routine, it means your subconscious has accepted it as fact. And once it's fact inside, it must be fact outside. I once imagined traveling abroad. At first, the idea felt exciting, almost unrealistic, but after assuming it nightly, feeling the airport, hearing the boarding call, it became ordinary in my mind. Weeks later, the trip manifested effortlessly. The shift had already happened inside, the outer simply followed. Many misunderstand this stage. They think the desire should feel thrilling forever, but thrill often signals distance. Fulfillment feels calm. It's the difference between craving a vacation and living on the beach every day. One is restless, the other is ordinary. That ordinariness is power. It means you've become the state. Neville called this the naturalness of assumption. When something feels natural, it no longer requires effort. You don't wake up asking, "Am I me today?" You just live it. In the same way, when the desire stops feeling like a dream and starts feeling like daily life, you know the shift is sealed. And here's where synchronicities shine. They're like little breadcrumbs showing you the state has taken root, but don't cling to them. They're not the destination, they're just the side effects. The real evidence is your calm expectancy, the quiet inner smile that says, "Of course it's mine." This is also where waiting disappears completely. You don't wait for the mirror, you trust it. You don't check the clock, you live as if it's already here. That subtle shift transforms your entire relationship with manifestation. You're no longer chasing, you're simply receiving. So when calm expectancy replaces doubt, when synchronicities sprinkle your days, and when the desire feels ordinary, you can be sure the state is real. That's when you stop checking results altogether, because you've become the one who already has. And that takes us deeper into embodiment itself. Neville Goddard made it clear, the true sign of mastery is when you stop checking. When you're constantly scanning the outside world, you're affirming separation. You're saying, "It's not here yet, I need proof." But deeper embodiment means the proof is within. You live as if it's done and you don't need the mirror to confirm it. Think of someone in love. They don't check every 5 minutes to see if their partner still cares. They live from the certainty of it. That's how embodiment feels. You stop questioning, stop doubting, stop monitoring. Instead, you carry yourself with the quiet authority of one who already owns the state. That authority is magnetic. Neville called this living in the end. It's walking through life as though the wish fulfilled is your normal. You don't force it, you embody it. Like slipping into a new outfit, at first it feels different, but soon it becomes part of you. And once it does, others see it too. The outer world mirrors the state you wear. Checking is the habit of lack. Embodying is the habit of fulfillment. One says, "Maybe, someday." The other says, "This is me now." The law of assumption responds instantly to the state you live in, not the words you speak. That's why Neville taught, "Assume it now, Neville style," because waiting only repeats waiting. I once wanted to shift my finances. At first, I checked my bank account daily, hoping to see change. But every check reminded me of lack. Then I stopped. Instead, I walked as if money flowed easily. I treated myself like someone already abundant. Soon, the outer world began reflecting it back. The shift came not from watching numbers, but from embodying wealth. Embodiment also feels lighter. Checking drains energy, like refreshing a web page that won't load. But embodiment is freedom. You close the laptop and go live your life. That detachment isn't indifference, it's confidence. You've chosen your state, and that's enough. The mirror will update when it's ready. Neville often used the example of sleep. When you go to bed, you don't check if you'll wake up in the morning. You assume it. That's embodiment. You carry the end so naturally that questioning disappears. And just like waking up, the result shows without effort. The law works best when you stop hovering over it. This is also where your imagination feels less like a tool and more like identity. You're not doing techniques anymore. You're being. That's the real goal. To blur the line between practice and life until assumption is simply who you are. That's when manifestation becomes effortless. And here's the paradox. The less you check, the faster results appear. Because checking vibrates lack, while embodiment vibrates certainty. The mirror doesn't respond to pressure, it responds to presence. When you walk as the version who already has, the world bends to match. So the deeper you embody, the less you monitor. You don't ask, when will it happen? Because you've already received it in consciousness. And once you live this way, the final step becomes clear, to stop waiting altogether and simply own your state in full. Neville Goddard's message comes down to this: stop waiting manifestation, because everything you long for is already alive in spirit. The world outside only mirrors what you've assumed within. If you wait, life keeps showing you delay. If you embody, life bends to your being. That's why creation is finished. You don't have to chase, you only have to claim. Waiting is like standing in front of a mirror, asking it to smile first. It never will. The reflection follows you, not the other way around. So instead of saying, I'll be abundant someday, you shift into abundance now. You breathe it, feel it, live it. And soon the mirror, the people, the opportunities, the circumstances, responds. This isn't about faking it, it's about being it. Pretending says, I'm acting like it's real. Assumption says, this is real because I am it. That subtle difference changes everything. When you own your state fully, the question of when disappears. You live in the end, and the end reveals itself naturally. Think of someone learning to swim. As long as they wait on the edge of the pool, they never experience the water. But the moment they step in and move like a swimmer, the body learns. Manifestation works the same way. Waiting keeps you dry. Being immerses you in the state. That immersion is where transformation happens. Neville's teaching is radical because it's immediate. How to claim it now, Neville? By stepping into the feeling right here, right now. Gratitude, relief, joy, whatever implies completion. You don't wait for evidence. You let the feeling be evidence. That's the secret. Reality follows conviction, not the other way around. And yes, the outside world may lag, but lag doesn't matter when you've already shifted. You carry calm expectancy, knowing the bridge is built. Life has no choice but to adjust. The law of assumption is precise. It cannot reflect anything but the state you persist in. That's why persistence in being always wins. The real power shows when the desire feels ordinary. You're not wishing anymore. You're living. The wealth feels natural. The love feels given. The freedom feels normal. That ordinariness is the sign you've stopped waiting. You've become the version who has, and life confirms it with perfect precision. Stop asking when. Stop rehearsing someday. Those words belong to the state of lack. Instead, breathe into the state of now. Live in the end, because imagination creates reality only when you dare to embody it. Waiting is hesitation. Being is creation. The choice is always yours. So here's the truth. Nothing outside can complete you, because it's already complete within you. The sooner you own that, the sooner the mirror clears. Stop waiting, stop postponing, stop checking, just be. And as you walk in that being, you'll watch the outer world rearrange itself around your inner conviction. So now you know, the only thing standing between you and your desire is the state you're choosing to occupy. Waiting only affirms distance. But when you live in the end, when you assume it now, Neville style, the outer world has no choice but to catch up. Ask yourself this: are you rehearsing lack or are you embodying fulfillment? Are you checking for results or walking as the one who already has? These questions matter because the mirror of life is answering them every single day. The truth is simple. Imagination creates reality, and feeling is the secret explained. A few moments of genuine gratitude, relief, or joy can do more than years of restless hoping. The bridge is already built. You only need to cross it. So tonight, stop waiting manifestation. Claim it. Own your state. Live in the end. And watch how quickly the world rearranges itself to match the truth you've dared to embody. If this message spoke to you, make sure to subscribe to the channel and turn on notifications, because we're diving even deeper into Neville Goddard's teachings and the law of assumption. Your transformation is only just beginning, and you don't want to miss what's coming next.